Hi guys, how are you? My name is Lloyd Chambers. I'm a productivity coach and author and an entrepreneur, and I have a huge passion for health. Now, on this call, I'm going to very briefly introduce a gentleman that's going to share the health side of what we're doing. But really, whoever invited you or tagged you on this video or sent you this video to take a look, I would urge you take a moment, maybe 15, 20 minutes, go get a notepad and pen and take some notes. So who is this for? So primarily we put a focus on athletes. So maybe you're doing an Ironman, maybe you're a cyclist, a swimmer, a long distance runner, sprinter, a rugby player, fighter, or even the trainers of any of those disciplines. You'll want to take notes on this one. So who do we normally work with? Health practitioners. So nutritionists, chiropractors, kinesiologists, holistic dentists as well, fertility experts, elite coaches, professional sports people, but also just, lay people as well. So the question you might ask yourself is, well, who can this help apart from athletes? Well, if you're a practitioner, certainly your clients. And that, for a lot of people, is a no-brainer. Equally, your colleagues, if you're in the workplace, which is where my focus is, and with your family and people you care for who want an upgrade in their health. So my special guest today is a gentleman called Dr. Robert Rakowski. He's an incredible gentleman. He's worked with some of the top elite athletes in the world. He's had over 10,000 hours teaching to clinical professionals of almost every discipline from stage. He's really, really well qualified to go into the detail of what we're going to talk about today. And I just want to highlight something which is very, very important. Everything that we're going to discuss here, or that Dr. Bob's going to discuss, is backed by published medical fact and published in Pubmed and the National Institutes for Health and so on. So we're discussing published medical fact rather than our own opinions. So it is important to understand that. So all of the PubMed citations are there. You'll see the PubMed IDs as you go along. You're welcome to check each and every single one of them. But it's really important that we take this information on board, understand we don't know what we don't know, and keep an open mind and really delve deep into this. So Dr. Bob, I'm going to send it across to yourself, and I'm looking forward myself to learning from you as I do every time you speak.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction. When you start talking about athletes, one of my mentors says that we're all athletes. Some of us just aren't really performing athletically. You start looking at business people, and the same things that make their body and mind sharp are the same things that tune up athletes. So athletes' top needs are going to be focus, fuel, and not just getting the fuel to the cell, but actually making use of it. So we'll introduce a little part of the cell called the mitochondria that literally makes 94.4% of human energy. Our number one waste product as humans is actually acid. Athletes know about lactic acid, but there's a much more abundant acid in the body called carbonic acid. And we need to be able to buffer that, or our performance is going to drop. We need to be able to control inflammatory process, and we need to be able to recover. So when we start talking about mental, Yogi Berra has a fun quote. He says, baseball is 90% mental. The other half is physical. So we are not going to give him high grades on math, but he certainly knew the importance of mental focus. And I had a New York Yankee team member in my office yesterday, and we were talking about the brain in athletes. And he said, Bob, when I see a fastball coming over the plate, I can literally see it. I can see the stitching, and I'm waiting on it to arrive. It appears that slow. So athletes have a different kind of brain. They capture more images with their eye per second. That's been proven. So that gives them the ability to slow time, but they have to have a brain that's working in order to do that. This Olympic coach and gold medalist, his name is Lanny Basham, and he talked about how the game at high level is mostly mental, and most of his athletes say are at least 90% mental. So think about that. It would help to have a brain that's functioning very well to perform in all areas of life. So there's 4 major brain neurotransmitters or chemicals that are all enhanced by Ganoderma. One is GABA, which keeps the brain calm. dopamine, which has a lot of functions, but in terms of athletes, the frontal cortex and focus. Serotonin keeps them happy and at peace. And then there's acetylcholine, which is good for memory. And you can imagine how good this would be for executives and the general population as well. And all the Pubmed studies listed, the PMIDs, you can put that into your Google search engine, go right to the medical study and verify everything that we're saying about the value of Ganoderma, which by the way is also known as Reishi and Lingqi. This study shows that Reishi has the same calming effect as a prescription dose of the drug Valium, but without the side effects. And I like to show this picture because I have some professional golfers, and they have taken golfers and put brain electrodes on their heads while they're on the putting green. And quite simply, when the golfer was calm, he was able to focus more on the putt and putt better, an average of about 3 strokes on 18 holes. And I've seen some golfers dramatically improve their short game just by keeping their brain calm. When we start talking about fuel, we talked about the mitochondria, and that is where, again, 94.4% of human energy is made. So the mitochondria has something called electron transport complexes, proteins that work this process of creating human energy, and Ganoderma makes that more efficient. It also helps the mitochondria recover from both toxicity and injury. Now, when you start thinking about toxins, a lot of people think about substances from outside the body that cause problems, but our body also makes plenty of internal toxins. Ganoderma protects the cells from both internal and external. When we start looking at acid buffers, there was an interesting book written years ago called Alkalize or Die, and it's medically accurate. We have somewhere between 50 trillion and 100 trillion cells being exposed to maybe 1 trillion molecules of oxygen a day. Every time oxygen goes into the cell, carbon dioxide comes out. It adds the water in the blood to form carbonic acid. And that is a lot of acid. This medical study finally proved many of the benefits of alkalizing the system or an alkaline diet. And a couple of things that I highlighted, first and foremost, was that it's going to improve muscle mass. And that's going to be certainly important for all types of athlete. It also improves bone density, and it allows our body to process toxins more efficiently while protecting against some significant chronic illnesses. So it doesn't matter who the athlete is, they're going to perform better with some muscle. When it comes to our chemistry, it's estimated that we have something like 75,000 enzymes in our body. And every enzyme in our body, and by the way, every hormone in our body is dependent on having the right acid-alkaline balance. As people become too acid, their enzyme function drops off very efficiently. And this reference even says that if you're too acid, it might take twice as much of the same hormone to create a same response from the tissue. So sometimes people will have the symptoms of low testosterone. They think they might need more testosterone. They just may need to change their acid-alkaline balance. Maybe thyroid hormone isn't working ideally, or insulin. Again, it can be related to acid-alkaline balance. So this is a fun graph of elite sprinters. And we see that sprinters are going to gain speed up until about 60 meters, and then their speed begins to decline. I call that the lactic acid decline. So it's estimated about the first 3 seconds of human energy production is stored ATP. The next 3 seconds is another energy system called creatine phosphate. Then we transition to something called anaerobic glycolysis. Oxygen is not being used yet, but the body is burning sugar, and the byproduct of that is lactic acid. And lactic acid can drop pH pretty quickly, and it will slow the body down. So this is a fun story. The sprinter in this picture is Tyson Gay. I put him on a pretty intense program where we really alkalized his system, also did a few other things to balance the structure and get him faster off the line. But in this race, and you can find it on YouTube, he beat Usain Bolt straight up in the 100-meter race. So Ganoderma is considered the most alkaline food in the entire world. Now, when you think about that, there's over 50,000 edible plants. It's unlikely that they've tested all 50,000. In fact, they surely haven't. But of the ones they've tested, Ganoderma or Reishi is the most alkaline. When we look at inflammatory control, I think a lot of people are very familiar with inflammation. Inflammation certainly precedes repair, but inflammation, if we break down the word, literally means fire within. And if you have the fire within burning too strong, it can burn you up and it can burn you out. So Ganoderma is proven in multiple medical studies to reduce the inflammatory process by more than a dozen different mechanisms. A molecule that a lot of athletes are familiar with is called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide dilates blood vessels. And in fact, the team that discovered it won a Nobel Prize because a single dose of nitric oxide can dilate a blood vessel by as much as 62%. So here I show a picture of a python swallowing a sheep because inflammation literally devours nitric oxide. In a strong inflamed state, you cannot dilate the blood vessels. You can't bring oxygen and nutrients to the tissue with effectiveness, and therefore you're not going to get much fuel. And it's known in the medical literature that Ganoderma not only buffers the inflammatory process, but it's a powerful regulator of nitric oxide. Makes it great for athletes and anybody wanting better health. When we start looking at recovery, Anders Ericsson is considered the world leading authority on peak performance. And in this book, Peak, they looked at the best of the best, whatever field they were in. I mean, it could be a chess player, it could be a violinist, it could be an elite athlete, and they found that the best of the best of the best sleep 8.6 hours a night. When you put that many demands on your brain and body, you need it to recover. So here's what we know about Ganoderma. It helps people fall asleep faster, sleep deeper longer, and wake up more refreshed. So a few athletes that we've worked on: Ulysses, phenomenal athlete from the UK, multiple time world champion natural bodybuilder. What did he notice with his first Ganoderma infused coffee? Well, he found he had better focus, more energy, more oxygen, less acid, better recovery. He called out in a little testimonial video that he did most of the major things that we're talking about, which is almost universal again across the athletic spectrum. Manny Pacquiao, 10-time world champion, fighter of the decade, earned somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million in the boxing ring. Previously wouldn't drink coffee because it would make his heart race, because of the calming effects of Ganoderma, because it dilates blood vessels. It actually, for many people, completely and totally buffers the negative effects of caffeine. Manny Pacquiao literally fell in love with the product and literally decided to become a partner in the company. Stevie McEwen, amazing Irishman, ran 100 marathons in 100 days, got faster every step along the way. I did his nutrition consult, was introduced to him by another individual from the UK. Stevie would drink Organo red tea, which has both Ganoderma and cordyceps. That helped his athletic performance, as did it did for this gentleman from Kenya, who ran the first ever sub-2 hour marathon. Phenomenal athletic feat. And again, Ganoderma increases all the things that athletes want. Cordyceps is something that helps it along the process. This individual has a TED Talk. His name is Paul Stamets. The TED Talk is 6 Ways That Mushrooms Will Save the World. And he talks about the health benefits, and they are profound and numerous. And he suggests that these mushrooms literally can save the world. He created a number of books on the benefits of mushrooms. He looks at a number of medicinal mushrooms and the impact they have. The king of herbs is Ganoderma. You look at all these known health conditions, Ganoderma helps. In this study, in all but one, but guess what? It now is also known to be both an aphrodisiac and something that enhances testosterone. So we can even put a check mark there. Number 2, cordyceps. Both of those are in our red tea. This publication says the mushroom medicinal boom, the business boom, will approach $50 billion a year in sales. Ganoderma US alone, $2.5 billion. And so here's a few things you want to know. One, most of the Ganoderma that's sold in the world literally is grown in plastic bags. So you look at this plant here, and you come to realize it doesn't look, too appetizing. It doesn't look too healthy. And as a matter of fact, it's not. When I teach students all over the world, I let them know that in medicine, we talk about the physical exam. You look at the outside of the being to get a general picture of what the internal health is like. I've asked many thousands of people which of these plants looks healthier. So far, we have every single person has said the one on the right has. If you don't see that, I don't know what you're looking at. But another point is sick animals cannot reproduce, sick plants cannot reproduce. The way that Ganoderma reproduces is through spore production. This plant doesn't even make spores. So if you're buying from a company that doesn't offer spores, you don't have a healthy plant. And then the second part of that is the company Organo has a patented process by which they extract the most nutrition from the spores. In fact, greater than 99%. They also have a patented process by which they infuse Ganoderma in coffee and tea, where the coffee and tea taste fabulous. There are some competitors out there. I've heard their coffee and tea described as mushroom soup. So test them side by side, see which one you prefer. I've lectured for some of the top nutrition companies in the world. These are all of Organo's quality certifications, which certainly puts it above any other company that I've seen. Organo, EcoCert, Kosher, Halal, GMP, you name it, phenomenal products with phenomenal ability. So as Lloyd said in the very beginning, what we want you to do is reach back to the person that thought enough about you to share this information and tell them you want a month's supply to figure out what this does for your body. I've been an investor in this company for over 7 years, full disclosure, and I can tell you that the people that consume it, if they do it regularly to the person, all notice something wonderful happening in their brain and body. With that said, Sir Lloyd, do you want to add any wonderful comments?
Yeah, just touching very briefly. I mean, one of the things that attracted me to working with this brand was the fact that I like anything that is as close to nature as possible. So, UNESCO protected site, GMP, EcoCert, 100% certified organic kind of struck a chord with me. And I also believe that organic is definitely the way to go. I also think the world is changing. I think that we have access to much more information now. And when it comes to the West, wherever companies are spending money on research is where we should be putting our attention. So if there's something where money is being spent and there's no side effects, and it doesn't interact with any known medication and it's natural, well, the question is, why is it not in all of the drugs that they sell? And the answers I discovered was that you can't get a patent on a natural molecule. And for whatever reason, and thankfully for me, because we have a business now and we have a way to help people, and enrich our own lives and theirs, is that you cannot get, when you take it apart, it doesn't work as well when you synthesize it and put it back together. So it's wonderful for us and it's wonderful for everyone who can consume it. And then finally, it's really important for results to be sustainable, for them to be pleasurable. So me personally, I like coffee. Ironically enough, I do not like the taste or the texture of mushrooms at all. Okay, so you're never going to find me eating a mushroom. And so the fact that I can enjoy it in a cup of coffee it's a big deal for me. So you guys might love mushrooms. For me, it was a big deal. But look, either way, whoever it is that's invited you or tagged you or whatever on this video, do get back to them, discover from them exactly what product you think is best for you. I would advise, if you're in the an athlete, the red tea, the spores are a personal favorite of mine, maybe the king of coffee, which has spores in it as well. But really, you want to get this into your body. Allow it to build up in your system as it detoxes the body and all the rest of it. And you're going to see a marked increase. For me personally, I noticed it within 2 weeks. Most people notice it within 72 hours. Some people take a little bit longer. Some people notice on a first cup, like Ulysses. So what I would encourage you to do is to give it a try. And if at the very least to give it a try to prove that it doesn't work, also fine, because you're going to see the same result either way. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's always a pleasure. And look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I appreciate you.